Okay, hello everybody and welcome back. This is week number 9 of distance learning. Thanks for tuning in. It's good to have everybody back. Last week was such an important week for us because we got a chance to read Fences. We finished it up, we responded to some guiding questions, and then we were introduced to our second major writer of this unit, an American writer, poet, playwright, and political activist named Amiri Baraka. So what I want to do in this video is break it up into two parts. The first part, we're going to talk a little bit about what last week's work was all about and how it relates to this week's work. Second part of the video, we're going to get into the calendar and then we're out of here. So let's get into it. Okay, last week we read Fences. We finished Fences and we responded to some final questions about the play. The last question that I wanted everybody to think about was a question that asked, would it be possible to produce this play in the 1950s, the context in which the story is set? Now, of course, this is a really tricky question because we're not play producers. We weren't alive in the 1950s. We don't know what it takes to produce a play, so it's impossible for us to really know the answer. But I would argue that, for the most part, the answer is no. What we know of that time period now it makes us think that it would be nearly impossible to produce a play like Fences on Broadway. We actually have a number of instances where black playwrights or white playwrights producing plays with predominantly black casts find it nearly impossible, if not completely impossible, to bring those shows to Broadway because of a very racist and discriminatory policy that guides what gets made. And audience taste. You know, audiences at this time, large Broadway audiences, are mostly white, and they have a certain kind of genre or style that they're looking for. And that style or that genre is not Fences by August Wilson. The reason that I want us to get thinking about this question, could this play have been produced in the time period in which it is set, is because it gets us to really appreciate the radical nature of Amiri Baraka. August Wilson is writing about the 1950s in the late 1980s, but Amiri Baraka is writing about the late 50s and early 60s in the late 50s and early 60s. When we read an essay like The Revolutionary Theater, we probably think to ourselves, wow, this person is really upset. He's using very inflammatory language, language that is designed to incite very passionate responses. He's talking about white theater goers leaving the comfort of their neighborhoods and coming up to Harlem and getting killed. Harlem at this time is a predominantly black neighborhood, working class neighborhood, that is several miles north of where the Broadway Theater District is. So anyway, when we ask ourselves, what is he trying to do in this essay? The answer is he's trying to shine a light on this idea that for such a long time, black playwrights, black actors, black dancers, anyone involved in the theater industry who is black experiences this discrimination. They see representations of themselves created by mostly white directors, playwrights, and actors, but they don't have a say in that process of representation. Baraka is trying to blow that whole institution up. And in The Revolutionary Theater, in his essay, he's advocating for a new type of theater that completely disregards the Broadway theater industry. At this time, all of the theaters in the Broadway area, the theater district, are owned by one of 5 families. They are all white. And for Baraka, he thinks to himself, we want, by we, he's talking to African American artists in New York City, we want to have our own thing. We're not trying to appeal to or appease white directors, white theater owners, or even white actors. We want a theater for ourselves that we control. Baraka is part of a movement called the Black Arts Movement. And the name itself also is kind of controversial. Sometimes the Black Arts Movement is called the Black Separatist Movement. And if we had more time, we could get into that, but you can search that out on Wikipedia and check it out yourself. The reason I want to provide you with a lot of this context is because this week we're going to be taking this thinking about August Wilson and Amiri Baraka, and we're going to be expanding it when we read Baraka's text, Dutchman. Maybe this is a good segue to get into this week's calendar. So let's check out the calendar. What are we doing this week? This week is all about reading Amiri Baraka's play Dutchman. This is a much shorter play than Fences, and it only involves two central characters, a man named Clay and a woman named Lula. So for Monday's class, you're just going to read the entire play. You can find the script online. It's only a one-act play, so the runtime I think is approximately an hour, 20 minutes. So Monday's class, you're just going to read the play. For Wednesday's class, you're going to respond to some of the final discussion questions. You're going to post them to Turnitin.com. Now, if you have any extra time, you can actually check out a very rare film version of the play. It's available on YouTube, and prior to that, it was only available through these hard-to-find VHS tapes. So we're in luck that we have access to this. You'll find that most of the lines are pretty much the same, but there are some kind of creative liberties that the actors take, and I think that's kind of cool. So definitely check that out if you've got a second. It's very much from the 60s. It's kind of, at times, kind of cheesy, but if you have a second and you want to see what this play looked like performed live, you can check that out. It's definitely worth your time. Now, next week, we're going to be taking a lot of these ideas and we're going to be building upon them. We're going to be working with films instead of plays, but a lot of this thinking about representation, about audience, about the people being represented, being part of that process of representation, of talking back or responding to this apparatus of representation that defines you in ways that you don't necessarily like. We're going to continue to think about all of that. So I look forward to your continued engagement as we move on, but for now, I hope you're engaged. I hope you're enjoying this stuff. I think it's really, really interesting. So I thank you again for your continued engagement, your energy. If you have any questions, post them to the group chat. Until we see each other again, be good to yourself, be good to everybody else, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.